Players often complain about bots destroying the internal economy, often of MMOs. This video will take a closer look at these assumptions from an economist standpoint. For the analysis, we take the classic supply and demand model and showcase how bots will deter the development of the economy. I will, however, also explain certain game aspects and how important they are to the model, because in most cases they are misconceptions or misunderstandings of certain game elements, which, if we proceed without clarifying, will muddy the waters. This video, however, will not go into the gameplay, nor is it a review. It also only looks at seasons and ignores solo players, which Path of Exile calls solo self-found. A season means a specific time frame, often 3 months, in which each player starts a new character and acquire items and experience. After the season ends, those characters get moved out of season and the season starts anew, which resets the progress and gives the feeling of a fresh start. As an action RPG, or better called hack and slash, to differ from games like Dark Souls or God of War, the main appeal in Path of Exile is progress. This progress is in form of character experience, aka level ups, and items you equip or use. With very few exceptions, you can trade all items you find on an open market by whispering other players. You acquire these items by opening chests, destroy objects, and most commonly, defeat enemies. These enemies drop both items you can equip, aka equipment, which is randomized, and orbs. Path of Exile does officially have no currency, but players quickly used said orbs as currency as a replacement, like after World War II certain countries used cigarettes as payment. Those orbs are categorized as currency items. In 99% of the cases you will trade with 2 orbs, Orb of Alchemy and Chaos Orb. Very important for the later model is that those orbs can be used to change equipment in a randomized way. The orbs can also be supplemented and have an exchange rate. For example, 1 Chaos Orb equals 30 Orbs of Alchemy. The goal is to get the best equipment. There are multiple characters and builds, for layman terms, playstyles, that all want to have different items, which means that if my Bleed Gladiator finds an excellent item for a Chaos Ranger, it's useless. This is where trading helps, because you can trade in this item for Chaos Orbs. You then exchange for an item you can use. Hypothetical, if 6 different character builds all find items for the other characters, everyone could get their ideal item through trading. For our model, we already established the orbs as the currency. The trading goods in question are the items. Suppliers are players that want to sell, and demanders are players that want to buy. Supply and demand dictate the price. For example, if we have 100 people that want to buy cheese, but there's only 1 cheese on the market, then the price goes up. This is because different participants on a market have different purchasing powers. So if the cheese is sold for $1, 100 people will buy it. When the price is raised to $3, then only 50 will still buy. But because we only have 1 cheese anyway, you can go higher. At $10, only 1 super rich cheese lover is willing to buy your stupid cheese. Because the seller cannot read minds but can guess their own market power, they will set the price naturally higher than $1. If the seller has evaluated the market right, they will sell it for example $7. This ratio can be inversed. So if 10 people will buy cheese but you have 1,000 and you also have a lot of competition, you will lower the price, so you can rid of all that cheese and sell at least something at all. We can extend this to an item economy. So if you have a one-of-a-kind rare item and it's one of the best, then you can raise the price. And if you have the most common item everyone is selling or finding, it will have a low price. The best items are the rarest, so as a rule of thumb we can say that the best items are the most expensive. The demand is also affected by how popular a build is, and if you play something that is rare in playstyle, you will face cheaper prices. In addition, this model has some unique characteristics. First, the currency is not fixed and not moderated, like in the real world. You can in theory have an infinite amount of chaos orbs on the market. Secondly, the miners and suppliers are the same people. If you buy something, you are also selling something, which means that monopolies are very rare, if even possible. Most of the time we have a polypole. Also, most players find more items than currency, because each player can only equip a set amount of items. The rest goes into the market, and you often find items for other builds. However, this changes with high level items, the rarest and most often the most powerful ones. The gameplay can be categorized in 3 different phases: the early game, the mid game and the end game. Most people play in the early game and the least people play in the late game. Late game characters find better items than mid game characters, and the same is true for early game. In other games, like classical MMOs like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy and more, this is shifted for more players in the late game, but this analysis will only deal with Path of Exile. So let's start the game. In our bot-free economy it would work like this. Within few weeks there will be a few late game characters supplying the market with late game items and so on for the mid game and the early game. The upper crust of the player base, the bourgeoisie so to speak, also find low level items and put them on the market. Although some players at high level will just ignore them. This results at a high supply of low level items on the market, which will put the price down and accelerates players climbing into the mid game. This creates a surplus of mid level items, but because of the rarity, the items will still be more expensive. But over time the price will decrease. The same for the end game. At one point everyone is geared out and supplies a lot of other builds with items. We call this market saturation. Now let's introduce bots into this. Bots are AI-controlled characters farming low-level areas. These bots automatically collect currencies as well as items. Many bots can also sell automatically. This method is very effective because AIs don't sleep and will create an influx of items and currency on the market. These bots are operated by players that profit from them, so often late game players get a lot of currency provided to them by bots. For our model this means that we have more low level items and currency on the market, but because items are greater in numbers, the price will still decrease, but a lot faster. A lot of bots will result in so low prices that players entering the early game can almost immediately enter the mid game. As an anecdote, this often happened to me. When I reached the early game, which is after quote the story, I could completely gear out with a handful of orbs of alchemy and chaos orbs. The mid game however is a bottleneck, because now we have a strong influx of mid game players, but there are not enough items on the market yet. However, bots also find sometimes mid game items, which will reduce the problem. For the end game it's different, because there is a lot of currency on the market and late gamers that use bots have most of them, so prices go up. A person that has 6000 chaos orbs don't care much about 3 more. The market is manipulated by a stream of currency provided by bots that primarily targets the end game. But this is limited. Although in theory there could be an infinite amount of currency which results in inflation, this will not happen, because you can use currency. Each item is randomized and you can re-randomize them with currency. You usually need different currencies for a better chance of outcome, but you can exchange them. For that reason, let's pretend in our model that one chaos orb re-randomizes an item. If you need a specific item with certain traits, each item drop has a certain chance because it's randomized. If an item you want would drop in one of 600 cases, then instead of trading, you could also use 600 chaos orbs until you get the item desired. Not only does this reduce the currency, it also serves as the aforementioned limit, because if you are aware of this, you will not pay more than 600 chaos orbs for that item. Of course, there is your personal time of using 600 orbs, so let's put that limit to 650. So our graph looks like this. So to answer the question, do bots destroy the economy of Path of Exile? No, it doesn't. It accelerates most players' progress into the mid game and at worst will put items at the limit price. Because progress is the reason for playing, the developer does not like bots. The longer people play, the more likely they spend money and will return to the game. It also looks better for investors that a game is played frequently in larger numbers. That's why grinding gear games have declared bots as illegal. As my personal opinion, I think farm bots should be removed because they rob people of the fun of progress. But bots that make trading easier should be legal because trading everything per hand, as I always did, is quite tedious, as it raises transaction costs. I hope you liked the analysis, and I wish you farewell.